What's going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you all are having a great evening, a great week so far. Welcome to Midnight Hatter Live, the weekly variety show where we talk Gundam, gaming, and Gunpla. I'm your host, Steven, aka Midnight Hatter, and joining me as always, the Blue Gamer, Gundam Explainer, Adam Blue. How are you, my friend?
Doing good, doing good. I really wanted to get a GQX video review out this week, but I need more time to process.
Well, I feel like this show for the last couple of weeks has been our sort of GQuX therapy session, GQuax,
Yep.
GQuX therapy session, where we get to get out all of our raw emotions before we even have time to process them. And we will talk about that a little bit tonight, but I don't want to dwell on these things because obviously, you know, there's people in the audience that haven't seen it yet. The
No,
finale, I should say, that aired yesterday, and B, you know, I want to get on to more positive things, right?
exactly. Talk about what we like. That doesn't mean
Exactly.
like, but
You
no,
know,
no.
it's funny. Someone on Twitter said the most poignant thing, and I'm going to be paraphrasing here, but it was basically like, if you're talking about the fandom of something more than you talk about the art, then you're probably missing the point. And I was like, that is such a good way of looking at it. Is like, if you're too busy complaining about what other people are talking about on the show, then yeah, I don't know.
It's so funny you said this because I stay off X mostly,
Yeah.
but I'll jump on. I wanted to jump on today to see if there was something to bring up on the show. And Ollie Barter had a tweet where he was retweeting someone talking about the fandom and now they're different. And I was going to reply and be like, guys, why are we always? And I was like, no, 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 that was the trap. But I'm glad you brought it up because it's
Yeah.
literally what I was feeling. It's like, no, I don't need to be. I'm contributing to the thing that I want to avoid. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So I'm being more cognizant of that. And if you catch me, this goes out to you guys in the chat, especially you supporters. I see you guys, Ultronymous, Alan Mitchell, good to see you. Sub Squad, JamCalX. Good to see you guys in the chat. I am gonna adopt the same rule that you've had going, Adam, where
Yeah.
supporters, I will try to read their chat live.
Oh yeah.
Or super chats, and then towards the end of the show, if we have some time at the end of the hour, we'll go through some of the regular chat and see if there's anything anybody said. But you know shout out to you guys. Yeah, I mean, I feel like man, what were we were talking about Ollie Barter. Man, I'm
Yeah,
on.
because it was the thing about not talking about the things that are negative, talk about the things
Yes,
that
so
are the
please, you
things we
guys
like.
in the chat, hold us accountable. If we start talking about fans more than we start talking about the actual Gundam show itself, call us
It
out.
and dude, I wanna say something, Steven, though, and sometimes you need another person to tell you this, but I think the reason we get along is because you generally do focus on the things you like. That's why you have all these unique hobby things you're always showing that is very unique because you're
Yeah.
so into it and like it, and yeah, so
Yeah, I mean, I could spend all day bitching about Victory Gundam. It's not gonna do any
No.
good.
That would be a
No,
good versus podcast where we're like, I don't know, we're like argue.
honestly, that would we should do a segment where, like, we come to the table almost like a legal defense, like, in defense of
Mm,
this thing that we like, so, like,
yeah,
maybe you would come to the table with, like, Seed Destiny. Well, but I
yeah,
agree with you on Seed Destiny, so
yeah,
that
that
wouldn't
would
work.
there'll be
So
something, maybe F91, since it's just a
ooh,
single
okay,
movie.
good one. And so, yeah, we'd be like, "Exhibit A, show the tape," like
Dude, I'd love that because I would be so serious about it.
So looking at the chat, obviously I've got a poll up there. If you guys haven't voted, vote it on it here. How good was GQuX? Best Gundam in a while. It's better than G-Witch or IBO. Disappointment immeasurable and day is ruined, or didn't watch all of it yet. It's all equal. 25%, 4 votes. So
I think that makes sense, and I do think from here on out, what we're gonna hear about GQuX is that mix of hate it, love it, it's okay. I think that is what this is.
absolutely, for
Yeah.
sure. And so yeah, Alan says voted best Gundam I saw in a while, counting it as the only new Gundam we saw this year.
Oh,
Honestly, there wasn't a proper choice for how I felt. Fair enough. By the end of the last episode, I totally. Oh, let's see. Ultronoma says, "I think the ending is good, and I totally called it weeks ago, but I think it would have been better if there was more time to build it up." That is a big thing, is it's like the
Yeah.
disappointment of not having, more than 12 episodes. But Seed Freedom is still my top Gundam in a while. Yep, absolutely. Sweet. And then, yeah, just because Lucas Smith says Blender mentioned in the title. Hey, yo, Blender, the 3D software. Yes, indeed. Tonight we are getting into a little bourbon and Blender. Speaking of things that Adam doesn't like, um,
What?
so I showed this
Oh,
off after Father's Day. Like my daughter and I put together this little SD cross silhouette Gundam Calibarn, which I love the SD cross silhouette line. Like it's such a
yeah,
cool, it's not quite like true SD, and it has articulated joints, which is unique. Like the BB Senshi line doesn't have that.
right.
My daughter did a good job for a 2-year-old. um,
Oh, yeah. What about decals?
no decals yet, but that's because we're going to put LEDs in it. One
Oh,
of the
that of
fantastic things
course.
about it,
Adam, what the hell? This is a
come on, Adam.
Steven joint.
So here, like as you guys know, I'm working on this Ilfrith pre-production type. The chest piece on the SD Calibar is actually the same size and shape as the chest lights on the Ilfrith. So
Wow.
that little LED unit that I've been designing here will actually fit in both kits.
Wow. Dude, that's a sign.
It means that I need to lean into this whole G-Witch thing that I've got going on.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that
So
is pretty cool.
tonight, oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say to have a reproducible part pretty much. Like,
Yeah.
that's especially for that yeah, those if it's so then I wonder about the high grade Calibarn.
Right, the high grade Calibar and the Ilfrith, the aerial rebuild.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get into that too.
Hmm.
But yeah, so one of the things I thought about is, and we talked about this when so for you guys that are not members of the Patreon, currently up on the Patreon is an SDCS frame that I made, a 3D printable one that's like slightly more detailed than the greater version here. And what I got to thinking was, there's a lot of kits that don't have their comparable rival kit. So I think I mentioned it in the Patreon post. Like the ground type Gundam doesn't have a Goof custom to fight against. The uh,
Uh-uh.
the Calibarn doesn't have an aerial rebuild to fight against. So it's like they have a lot of these mobile suits that don't have their counterpart. The only one that does is the RX-78 and the Sharzaku. So
Yeah.
basically what I'm getting at is we need a Gundam for this Calibarn to fight. And I thought I could do the aerial, but let's be honest, I like Elon more, and so we're gonna make a Pharact. We are gonna
Good
make an
choice.
SD Pharact.
Good choice. Especially now that we know that the chest size is the same or the chest piece. That's
Right.
even cooler.
So we can put LEDs in the Pharact too. But before we dive into Blender, I do want to go through some announcements real quick because there are some cool things I want to share with you. So, my coworker, currently on vacation in Puerto Rico, sent me a few photos because he said that over the weekend he was going to check out like one of the local Gunpla shops, and I was like, let me know what it's like, because one of the things we talk about on the show a lot is like, I'm a P Bandai apologist, and I really can't stand when like, Americans are complaining about the price of P Bandai, or like, oh, the availability of P Bandai. And it's like, dude, there are places in the world that don't even get like the standard run of high grade kits.
Yeah.
And so to further illustrate that, here is what a Gunpla shop in Puerto Rico looks like. It is actually one corner of a pizza shop that has a few shelving units and a bunch of model kits. Not a bad selection though. Like I see a Perfect Greed Unleashed there.
Yeah.
We've got a unicorn Gundam.
Bunch of
There's
unicorns.
yeah, 2 unicorns, a Kshatriya. Looks like a whole host of master grades available. And this is basically like one of those plastic shelves that you can get like on Temu that you throw in like a garage.
Got one.
Yes, so do I. Oh, look, we've got actually a
The C3
Bandai C3PO.
that's a cool idea. And R2. Oh, no, just a C3PO. That would be cool if it was a 2-pack.
Yeah,
Then I would
bummer.
probably buy it, but
So, yeah, so to give you that's just, like, to me, "Oh, we got
Oh,
a high grade Zoc, we've got a
yeah,
Delta
that's a good
Plus."
one. Delta
So, there's
Plus?
some cool that looks like
Yep,
a Wing
Verka wing.
Gundam Verka,
Wow.
and then, yeah,
Thunderbolt?
some Build Fighters, some Thunderbolt. So, I mean, it's not a terrible selection, to be honest, like,
No. There's I would be able to spend a good 2 weeks and finish everything. Yeah, no, I'm joking. That's one of those things like, so get this. This is a funny joke. So let's say I think, why am I saying this is a funny joke? But let's just say someone finds a Gundam for the first time at that pizza joint and they buy it. And you know how it happens to everybody? After you build your first one, you then buy so many and build so many. Then that whole store that's how it has to work. You have
yeah.
to find that one person that's gonna get addicted.
The first hit is free, kid. Um,
Oh, that's a good idea.
yeah.
That's a good idea, actually.
Ultronymous in chat says, "Sudden thought, would an entry grade kit be better for adding LEDs since it's simpler, or something like an RG or PG be better?" I would say entry grade is definitely better than a real grade because real grade has too much interior parts. Like the inner frame makes it hard to wire things up. Perfect grade, even though it's highly detailed, you still have roomed thread wires in between, so you should be okay. Oh yeah, Ultronymous caught the at the top of the wall, it said dough, like fresh dough behind the
And was that a TV in there too? Because I would just
Yeah,
hang out in
probably.
there all the time.
Yeah, no kidding. Um, so yeah, this tiny corner for Gundam reminds me of the tiny shelf Nintendo store in New York had for Metroid that you could easily miss.
Oh,
True.
that's sad, but that's how they treat them. Don't get me started, third-party developer. Okay, anyway.
Man.
Hey, and we've got, GoGFX Unlimited in the chat.
Hey, what's up, Goji? Good to see you, man. Yeah, he and I have been talking a lot lately about 3D printing. Honestly, I'm
Yeah.
envious of his fleet of 3D printers.
It's
It's pretty impressive. So
I
I
know.
definitely want to pick his brain sometime on the show about like the best FDM printer to get because like obviously I've got my resin workhorse, but it'd be nice to get some PLA prints going.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, man, it's making me wanna get between what you guys do, it's like I gotta get back into it.
It's good stuff, man, and it's only gotten easier. I feel like the barrier
Yeah,
to entry for 3D printing has gotten so much
I
more
bet.
accessible. Um, so a couple of other quick announcements. If you guys are still playing SDG Generation Eternal, you guys know I am. You log in, and because it is the finale of GQX, you get for free the 0079 version of Twink Shaliable. um, he's like a super secret rare, so he's actually one of like the more powerful characters you can use, which is pretty cool. And like
Oh,
you can get Cassilia, and like Cassilia as a supporter, you can actually unlock like you can max her out for like 3,000 G Shop coins, which is actually pretty reasonable to get. Like
yeah. Oh,
um so lots of cool stuff going on there. Obviously lots of
yeah.
free things that they're throwing at you because the game is so highly rated. On top of that, huge announcement today is that we are finally getting some expansions to the core gameplay. So like not just events, not just like limited time banner type deals. These are actually going into the proper main series. Seed Destiny and Gundam Char's Counterattack. They launch on Monday, and leading up to then, every day that you log in, you get a free bonus. So log in every day until Monday, and then these are going to be available to play, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, I am too. I think it was fun going through the stories that I wanted to go through,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's cool to have Char's counterattack. Even Destiny, j you know, just to be
Yeah, I was
Shin.
surprised that they did that whole like seed recollection thing instead
Yeah.
of just doing seed and then seed destiny.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know, just adding more seed stuff, I guess, is it really kinda telling just seed is the other big one, pretty much? It's seed and
It's
UC, right?
basically, I mean, that's
Yeah.
it. It's like
Even though people like Wing, I think as a whole, seed has more to it. that a lot of people like, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I would agree with that. And it's I mean, obviously, like, Endless Waltz didn't get its own story mission, and neither did Stardust Memory. Actually, Stardust Memory was like an event, right?
Oh, yeah. So that's interesting.
And they did announce on the timeline on the web, like, or the roadmap, I should say, that Thunderbolt is coming the same week as Seed Destiny. However, if it's not one of the main series, Thunderbolt's probably going to be like a limited time event.
Yeah. So
But
I won
again, I don't mind the way that they handle events because it is so easy to get everything in the event without spending any money. Like,
You're right.
if you just log in every day, I got everything from Stardust Memory, like all of
Yeah,
it.
uh, so I wonder then what you think if maybe, like, in a year, they start doing it where then those events become just regular things.
That would be cool
I
if
think
they
that would
just
be cool.
open them up to.
Yeah. Because this is something sometimes I get out of games like GBO2 when you look in the hangar and all the mobile suits, like, there is something to looking at your SD, Gundam thing, like, all the mobile suits that are built in the development tree, seeing all the thing like, it's
Yeah,
part of collecting that lore,
it's very satisfying. And
Yeah.
honestly, like, that really is the core gameplay loop is just unlocking things, adding more stuff, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So let's see. Do we hop directly into Blender to start working, or do we talk about GQX first? Maybe we can do both at the same
Both. I
time.
was about to say, yeah. Um, First of all, where did you get this model?
So, yeah, let me pull this up. So this is, as you guys can see now, is a textured model of the Gundam Pharact from Witch from Mercury, which again, I don't know what it is. Lately I've been on just this Witch from Mercury kick. I still think that like Suletta is not a terrific character. I think Mjolnir is an awful character. Probably worse than Rekua. I might make
It
a
it
video about why Mjolnir is a worse character than Rekua.
it's funny you think that because I like Mjolnir a lot.
You do.
Yeah. That's what our video is
Interesting.
gonna be.
That okay, so that in defense of Mjolnir. Um, so believe it or not, this model actually came from a Android mobile game that's only available in Japan called Gundam Battle. There's only a few Witch from Mercury mobile suits in it. There's the Pharact, the Ariel, the Darabald, and the Big Ear Bow.
Wait, what game is
Um,
this?
it's called Gundam Battle.
And it's only in Japan? Is it like a mobile game or something?
Yeah, it's only on Android. So,
Oh, wow. Interesting
um,
to know that there was games out there with Witch from Mercury content that, you know
That so after I built, this little guy, I was like, "Man, I really wish that there was more like SD Witch from Mercury stuff." And then I was surprised to see that there wasn't. And
Yeah.
so I was like, "Well, what Witch from Mercury stuff is there?" And it's like not even in Gundam Breaker 4, but this mobile game did have these models. And what's impressive is like, typically when I look at video game models, I have it textured here so that you guys can see the textures. And the textures usually do a lot of the heavy lifting as far as the details go. But what I want to do is let's convert it over to just a random texture view. And if you look, this is actually a very highly rendered model for a mobile game.
That's what I was thinking, 'cause that's why I was like, first of all, where'd you get this? Because I don't know any game that would have this model, and so f yeah, for and yeah, it is high quality.
Yeah, it's very like a lot high poly model for a mobile game. And what I went ahead and did is I imported it into my SDCS template. So like if we were to let me enable the frame, oh, he takes up a lot of room.
Mm.
So this is the SD cross silhouette frame that I designed. It basically is the same specs as the frame that's in this kit, but obviously with a few minor improvements on my end. But yeah, basically what we're gonna do is try and take that Pharact that is not SD and convert it to SD to fit this frame.
And so I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, could this be as easy as maybe taking the left side bicep and then just kind of making it bigger and then just seeing
That's pretty much exactly it, honestly.
Okay.
So, like, let
Not that
me,
that's easy, but yeah, like the
well,
concept. Yeah.
I always at my old job, I used to tell my boss, like, "Look, there's no such thing as an easy request. There's simple requests. It's like it
Oh,
sounds like it would be simple to do, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's easy."
yeah. I'm
Um,
glad you said that, simple. I gotta remember
yeah.
to use that, yeah.
But, this file actually does include all of the parts from the, Bawu that I was which apparently is not visible at all. Let me see here. There we go. So I was in the process of making an SD Bawu that fits this frame. Um, and as you can see, it really isn't that difficult to come up with the SD look. Basically, what we're looking at is reducing the torso size, the biceps, and in the case of UC mobile suits, it means reducing the size of the thigh and like exaggerating the size of the shin and calf. But when you look at a Witch from Mercury mobile suit, such as the Calibarn here, you see that the thigh is actually exaggerated and the calf is kind of like diminished and made into like kind of a
Interesting.
finer point.
What That's interesting because I think that was more of the design philosophy behind the Witch from Mercury suits, which was probably opposite of what SD was, so they did that on purpose, I'm assuming.
Uh, yeah, and you know what's funny is of all of the SD kits, the Calibarn is the only one that doesn't use the full SD frame because the legs are their own pieces. Like
Oh,
the SD frame, like I could grab the runner for you. It's like it doesn't use the other parts from the frame. It uses its own parts. So very interesting.
yeah.
Um,
Huh.
or I guess you could see like these parts here that I have selected on the model. Those are not used on the Calibarn at all. The feet are, but
Okay.
not the legs.
That
So, with that said, what we got to do is pull up the Pharact here and start cutting up some pieces to start scaling up and down to get into that proportion that we need. So, let's hide the frame for just a minute. And I guess the first thing we want to do is try and make the head. As always, you guys know I'll hop into edit mode. We'll go to vertex and merge vertices, uh, or maybe it's in mesh. So I bounce between versions of Blender so often that sometimes I forget which version I'm in.
dude,
So I always merge vertices by distance. That reduced it by about 3,000 vertices. Um, we definitely want to. As you can see, it's got like a little bit of a weird shading to it. Let's go ahead and hit shade flat. That's gonna give us that flat shading. Face, we're going to convert all of our triangular faces to quads. That just makes it a little bit easier to work with. And then let's hit separate. We'll see if this works. I don't think it's going to give us a good result, but you never know. We're going to separate by loose parts. So it did divide it up way more than I expected. So I love using this random material in Blender because basically every part on screen gets rendered in a different color, which indicates like this is how many parts are on screen. So
oh,
like, this whole leg chunk is all one piece.
yeah.
But if you look at the pelvis, it's like we've got the groin here. There's these two little flaps that are each two different pieces. These two little flaps that are each different pieces. The chest, there's like a central chest piece, and then either side of the chest, either side of the shoulders, those are all different pieces. So it's really helpful, especially when you're going to 3D print these things in their color separated form. You can say, hey, print these parts in yellow, print these parts in navy blue, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that is very helpful. I can really see that being helpful.
So the first thing I'm going to do, now that we've got it separated by our parts, I always tend to do this. What I will do is select the parts of the head and we're going to move them to their own group. So let's create a new collection. We're going to call it Pharact Head.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
We go for descriptive titles here. um, and if we hide it, we can see that okay, we missed a few parts right here. We need the chin, we need this part. These are the parts of the Pharact head that need to go. And that's about it, because everything else is like the neck and below. So let's hide the Pharact. We'll bring back the Pharact head. And then the thing that we're going to want to start doing is taking some measurements so that we know exactly how big this thing is supposed to be. So if we're going to
Wow.
make it similar in scale to the Calibarn head is 25.2 millimeters wide. So let's select all of this, join it up.
Oh, you wanna hear something crazy?
Oh, what's that?
I took a picture of my wedding ring with ChatGPT and asked, "Can you tell me what size this is?" And it told me the size.
That is impressive, dude.
Yeah, I put
My
items around it.
For reference.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? But anyway, I was just thinking that
Um,
because I was like, couldn't you just take a picture of it maybe? But no, that would be way too complicated of an object.
I mean, you never know. Honestly, I did take a picture of like the SD frame and plugged it into ChatGPT and said, "Hey, can you give me a front and side view of this so that I can model it in Blender?" And it did a pretty decent job,
Oh,
to be
wow.
honest with you.
I didn't even think of that. Wow, so trying to ask AI to extrapolate what is unseen or a perspective. That's
Precisely.
that's interesting. Oh, look at that.
It's the wide Pharact meme. Um, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna copy that scale because I took the width basically of the head, and now we're just gonna extrapolate out what the scale of the head should be based on that. And I don't know, that looks kind of small to me still. Let's take a look at what the frame looks like. And tab all grab Z. I don't know. I That actually looks fairly
Yeah, because the Pharact head
appropriate.
is just kinda small in the first place, so if we consider the shoulders,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think that that is probably about the right that's appropriate for the Fair Act.
yeah.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah. Wait,
Um,
so did you just do a one-to-one scale, or was there anything you proportioned differently?
so I basically just copied the width of the area or with a Calibarn's head. We
Yeah.
could, in theory, um, we could get more delicate with it and say, all right, if the Calibarn is physically
Oh, I see what you're saying.
94.8 millimeters in SD scale, and I don't even know what it would be in like, let's see, Gundam
Yeah,
Calibarn.
it's like a creative interpretation.
Yeah, it's hard to say because like
Yeah.
the head height might be a certain amount, but because the proportions are different, it's not quite the same. So the head height is 18.2 meters, and the height of the kit is 94.8 millimeters. I mean, but the head size is like 30% of that, as opposed to the head size being like 10% of the actual uh Calibarn, you know?
Dude, that's some maths. That's when I check out of a project. It's like, "Dude, there's numbers involved with this project? Okay, well,
I'm
guys."
out. Which that should have been the dead giveaway to check out of GQX, right? Because it's like
Oh my
once we started talking about like GQux and GFred, it's like, oh guys, get it? It's a math joke. I'm like,
I know, exactly. When they were talking about that being a math joke, I was like, "Man, this isn't for me."
this is not the Gundam for me for sure. Um, but you know what? Honestly, that might be a big reason that I like Witch from Mercury is you and I have talked about this is I hate undersized mobile suits. I can't stand Victory. I can't stand F91. I don't
Oh,
like any mobile suits that are
the
smaller.
miniaturized.
The
Well,
miniaturized mobile suits kill me, and so I love that at least Witch from Mercury is full size.
okay, yeah, I was gonna ask you. Okay, so the suits from Witch from Mercury, what are they? What's full size to you? Is that New Gundam or is that Unicorn?
Ooh, that's a good question because like 18 meters is what I think of as full size because that's like the RX-78 too. But the new Gundam is like 22, right?
Right, which is not too much bigger considering other ones that are big. So, but yeah, probably in that ballpark. But yeah, that still makes the victory in those later shoot. But wait, real quick, why do you not like them being smaller? Do you think it's because there's really an out of universe reason for it that has to do with money?
I've never thought about it, honestly. It's just
Oh,
to me, maybe it was the sheer disappointment when I was 13 years old and I picked up my first Easy 8 kit and I held it up next to the Gundam Shenlong and I was like, wait, why is my Shenlong so small?
oh, okay. Hmm. So they kind of just have that short king vibe then. Um,
Yeah, which you think I'd be all about being a
yeah.
short king myself.
No, but not in our robots. Sorry.
No, no, no. Not the robots, sir.
It's like that with Godzilla. Like they're all different sizes. And what is the Godzilla size? The first one? Is that as fun as the bigger ones? So,
I don't know, uh, that would be a question for Goji.
oh, dude, I need to ask him that. Yeah, Goji, if you're still in the chat,
Yeah,
what
let us
is
know.
what is the preferred size of Godzilla?
Right. Canon size of Godzilla.
Yeah,
Um, so I promised we wouldn't get too heavy into GQX, but I do want to at
yeah,
least, offer some thoughts on it. Because you and I did watch the finale
yeah,
and we do have our own thoughts. But again, I don't want to get like too bogged down in like negative or, kind
right.
of lame ideas. So let's do something just kind of basic. Let's give it a rating 1 through 10 out of 5 categories. We'll do music, we'll do plot, um, mecha designs. What are a couple of other categories you like to cover?
Uh, maybe so there's like the plot slash story, but then there's like set pieces. I'm really big on Gundam having or episodes having set pieces.
Okay, set pieces.
Yeah, that are not necessarily plot driven, but if they're part of the plot, that helps the rating.
And then
Maybe
what about like
characters.
characters?
Yeah, there we go. Okay,
Okay. So let's do your ratings first. Let's
sure.
go characters 1 through 10. Where do you stand?
Y to be honest, the only character I really like, I would say 10 Shaliable. Like, I love, like, just even for not being Gundam or anything, when they had that flashback, he was probably the most well done if you were to, speed run a character story of what he was going through. Like, that facing death in the way he was, how he talked about it, I just thought was compelling. Also, Cassilia, I just like that we had more with her, and it was cool stuff, and it was yes, it was more of the same of what we would expect of her to do, but I felt like it was good because it was, you know, in the original Mobile Suit Gundam, we didn't get too much more, but in this, we get to see her do it more like I like the with Giran. Like in the original, her and Giran's little rivalry was cool. Wasn't really, huge, but it was a factor. And in
Yeah.
this, they let us kind of bask in it, no pun intended, but perfectly because of that poison scene,
Yeah.
which I thought was done so well. That was probably one of the coolest scenes.
I was a little disappointed at how quickly it happened,
That
but
though.
like the pacing of the show, but that's a whole other
Yeah.
topic. So, yeah.
Okay. So, but I'm gonna be honest with the other characters, Neon probably was the coolest, but then they just didn't really do anything with it because then she's like, "Okay, let's be friends," and then they like hold hands or something. Like, I'm like, "Come on, guys."
Lame.
They held robot hands to signify that they're friends again. Like it was, but anyway, I liked what she was going through. I liked her kind of stoicism of the character when you first meet her, but you could tell there's stuff there and what things did motivate her versus what didn't. I like the kind of tragic love in a way, tragic with Shuji because you almost felt like okay, then they would go together, but anyway. Um, so I would be like 10, 9, 8 in that order of the characters I talked about, but the others, there would be 0 because I Machu, I mean, that seemed more like a stand-in character for people asking, "What the fuck is happening around me?" You know what I mean? Like, okay, what was another category?
Okay, so
Music.
that was characters. What about, music? Yeah.
So this is a tough one because I'd say because it plays like the old school stuff, like, I would give it a 10. I will say some of the other like, the theme song is cool, but the vibe just does not it makes it hard to get the vibe I wanna get out of this show, you know? But sometimes that music worked when characters were talking or, like, the more modern electronic stuff. So I would let's say I'll give it a 9 because it had the awesome original Gundam music, but minus a point for the other stuff didn't really match anything.
Okay, fair.
Yeah. And then let's see, what was the other one?
What
Story?
about, yeah, let's do plot/story.
I'll give it a 5 in that I liked how they were playing with, there's so many ways you could talk about it, but the quantum or 0 point or that other side, like it kind of putting the new type consciousness thing, like really focusing. I think that stuff is very interesting. But
It is.
there was no sort of payoff for me after the show to be like, "Oh, wow, interesting thing to have happened," or, which maybe is unfair now I'm thinking about it because of my age and things I've experienced. Maybe then for other people or younger people, maybe it's profound in some way, but for me, it doesn't just like well, actually, I will say because I just got into, most ago, what, 5, 6 years ago, and when I was done watching the first series, I'm like, "Wow," but this, it's not like but
Yeah, there's
the
not,
callback stuff is
yeah,
good.
and you and I were probably talking about this specifically before the show started, but it's empty calories, right? Is
Yeah.
is how I would describe the show, especially when it comes to the plot compared to something like 0079.
Okay, so then let's see, battles, set pieces, that's gonna be I I mean, other than well, I'll say the recreation of the Gelgoog fight, because that was using kind of the animation style I would prefer over most of it being the 3D, which, again, the frame rate used for the 3D is a little different than some of how the animation is, so it just gives this, inconsistent feel for me. I would think in general for me, the battle set pieces, action scenes, I don't know, maybe a 5, and maybe that's generous. I liked the Psycho Gundam,
Yeah.
battle, and then I liked the OG stuff, but nothing else was interesting to me. And a lot of it too to bring up is I've been watching Evangelion, and, I watched the latest remake, and everything is so much better than GQX.
Isn't it
So
weird
it's
how that works
confusing.
out?
Yeah, it's just kinda confusing, like, from animation to the way the story's being presented, the cuts, the action. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
so yeah, 5 on that. And what
5
did
on
we
story. So, yeah,
was that it?
so that's character, music, story, mecha designs. Where did you land?
Oh, good one. Man, I feel like I'm taking the easy way out again, but I'm just gonna say 5 because I do like the white Gundam look. Yeah, a lot of it has to do with it looks like it has a lot of handles, and then that yellow and black stripe gives me like power loader vibe. So it gives me more of like a machine, you know, vibe.
That's fair.
But it's funny. I got the Gelgoog, the GM, and I think that looks cool, but nothing else. Nothing else. Because I would love to buy that metal build white Gundam or metal robot spirits. What? Yeah, but um, yeah. So I'd give about 5. Yeah.
Mm,
I would say better, which there's better Witch from Mercury designs because I think it's kind of cheating that there's the RX-78 too and all that, because I love that. So
yeah, I mean, but credit where it's due. It's like GQucks did go their own direction with it and
yeah,
come up with their own designs, but still, yeah, like you said, they're more of like it's more like putting a spin on an existing design than it is building something from the ground up.
Yeah, actually, really good point because the other thing I've kinda alluded to this was all the Evangelion stuff. Ha There's
Mhm.
a lot of Gundam stuff going on, there's a lot of Evangelion stuff going on. That G-Fred is pretty much an Evangelion. The way they set up
Yeah.
Neon as the pilot, that whole thing with the other like, they made it all like half of the show was Evangelion, so, yeah, it is
Yeah.
interesting then to take it in like that because they didn't truly try to make something original, they really just combined.
Yeah, it really did feel that way, at least to me, but, I'm interested in hearing what you guys think, so alright, so that covers plot, music, characters, mecha design. What was the last
Battles
one?
or set pieces.
Set pieces. Oh, yeah, so that was everything,
Yep. Yep. Okay, so now you've had all this time while multitasking in multiple ways, talking about this, building a 3D model, and thinking about your answers.
Yeah, see, that's my way of cheating is I get to, like, hear your explanations and your rationale for the way you feel about things, and then I get to no, in
Just say
truth, honestly, it's I'm more curious about how you feel about these things than me because,
yeah.
to me and this one of the things I kind of discovered when I was scrolling through X is it's like, man, there's so many people that are so up in their own feelings and, like, they're so interested in sharing their own perspectives that they can't even fathom the idea of hearing somebody else's. And so it does give me some pause, and it does give me, some, well, maybe my interpretation of it wasn't correct, hearing somebody else say what their interpretation was.
Yeah.
So it's just part of, like, one of those things with growing up. It's like it's more important to listen than it is to speak. That's
Oh,
a long-winded way of saying
no.
yeah.
Well, I was gonna
Um,
say real quick, did I say this to you already? My boss said there's a reason we have 2 ears and 1 mouth.
it's a great saying, dude. I
I
love
know.
that one.
I know.
Love that one. Um,
Yeah, it was said to me. Okay.
so for me, the easy one is music. Music was a 10 out of 10 for me. I love all of the tracks. I especially love when they brought back, vintage tracks from
Oh,
earlier Gundam series. That was cool, but
but you
even the
like
new
the music,
music was fantastic.
even the modern stuff.
Yeah, the modern
Cool.
stuff. I loved the No Melon No Lemon song, and then Plasma, the opening credits song, all of that fantastic, fantastic music. Even like I remember when the trailer came out and I was like, "Ooh, these mecha designs are terrible, but that music is so good." Like it really
Wow.
drew me in. So that was
Wow.
obviously the biggest draw for me. And
That's
then
cool.
parlays into mecha designs. I thought the mecha design was terrible. 2 out of 10.
Oh, yeah.
G-Witch definitely has by far the better mecha design,
Yeah.
and you guys know I don't like it at all. So that
Yeah.
that should tell you where we're at as far as mecha designs go. Um, for the plot, I would give it like a 4 out of 10. The best thing I could say is that it's ambitious. There was a lot that they were trying to accomplish in a very
Yeah.
short period of time. Unfortunately, I think that they bit off a little bit more than they could chew, and as a result, we get this sort of half. I don't want to say half-assed, but like
Yeah, it's half a
half-baked.
it's half a creative endeavor, half a marketing opportunity. That could be wrong, but I kinda think
Yeah,
that's what they're aiming for.
exactly. Yeah, I think that there was a lot to be desired there, and I think it's because their attentions were split. It's like they're trying to tell this new original story while at the same time doing all of this sort of fan service references to 0079 that you know I think you and I have discussed this. It's like they really should have been just 2 different shows. Like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I think that if you had put I'm gonna keep saying it, if you put Astakasia in Universal Century and you made Witch from Mercury a Universal Century show, it would have been much more well thought out and much better executed than whatever GQX was, which was like a fever dream.
And there's already precedent for the school like that because the beginning of Unicorn.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
know? Um So that kinda bummed me out.
Yeah.
As far as characters go, I agree with you. It's like there's some characters that are fantastic, others that are just, like, underwhelming.
Yeah, underwhelming.
I really did like Neon,
Mhm.
uh, and for a while, I liked Shuji because I wanted to know more about him
Right.
until I realized that he was the Deadpool of the universe.
Oh, that's funny.
Um, and so now, like, that just makes him uninteresting to me, is that he's just honestly, I feel like let me put it this way. The characters are a 6 out of 10. There are 2 characters that really drag it down for me. One would be Shuji, and the other being Shalia himself. As much as I like Shalia, it became very obvious to me that Shalia and Shuji are the self-insert characters, because of all of the legacy characters that are in the show, the only one that had such a drastic makeover was Shalia. Everybody else was the same.
Oh,
But
yeah.
Shalia got, like, this treatment that makes him does he kinda
That's a good
look like
point.
Anno to you? Like, maybe Anno without glasses?
I don't know. I was not thinking that. I'll have to check it out again.
It's
Because you
something to
think
think
that's what
about.
they're trying to do? Interesting.
I think that that's his that there might be some, yeah, there might be
I
some
guess
motive
I could
there.
see what you're saying. Um, um, okay, wait, so you didn't like how his character turned out?
No, I enjoyed him when the show started, but then as the show carried on, and then especially as he became this sort of, omnipotent
All-knowing.
character
Yeah.
that, like it became very obvious to me that he was a self-insert for the writer to
Yeah.
be like, you know, "This is this is my version of the
I
one-year war hero."
totally see what you're saying because by the end, it's almost like he had his prerogative that was really the whole underlying, you know, if you were able to find what was some underlying, like, throughput for a character, Shalia Bull had it, you know?
Exactly, and I've mentioned before how much I dislike that Christopher Nolan style, Basil exposition from Austin Powers, like, lore dump that you get from a character, like when Leo DiCaprio in Inception sits down and he says, "Okay, here are the rules of dream diving, okay? The first level is when we can influence what a person thinks. The second level is when we can influence what a person does, and then the third level we can do this and like incept ideas, but anything beyond that, that's called limbo." And it's like, how do you like do you just know the rules? Like and so when
That's
Shuji's sitting there and he's saying like, "Hey, Machu, let me explain to you how everything happened. Is this character did this and this and this, and she created all these universes, and I've been following her for all this time." And it's like, wait a second, why didn't you just say so from the beginning?
yeah, exactly. No, exactly. That's why and I even think some of my reactions I had for my live videos, I think there's a certain point, and it's around one of those, yeah, exposition dumps where I'm just like, "Are they really doing this?" Really? So they were just keeping the audience in the dark the whole time. Then the characters knew this the whole time, so it makes everything uninteresting anyway. And
Right.
I don't wanna get negative.
Ugh, so annoying. So that's how I feel about the characters. um, so let's see. That covers music, characters, plot, mecha designs, set pieces.
Yeah.
Set pieces, I will give a 10 out of 10, and it's for the same reasons you did. Where it's like,
Oh, okay.
man, the reanimation of the Gelgoog fight was spectacular.
Yes.
Um, you know, it's the same thing that I said about The Acolyte, is the set pieces are really what defines the show, and you can tell that the writers had the set pieces in mind, and they were like, "So what do we have to do to write ourselves to get to that set piece?"
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if the character is motivated or not, doesn't matter if the plot makes sense. We just wanna create this set piece. We wanna have a giant Gundam. Okay, explain how it happens. It doesn't matter. Just we need a giant Gundam. Like, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just
Exactly.
I guess. So yeah, that's where I'm at with the old G-Quacks.
Yeah, I think yeah, I think that's fair. I hope out of this we're getting that. Maybe Ikara is being used to create the uh, remake of the original Mobile Suit Gundam, and this was a test to do that, and then maybe to get some extra money. Yeah.
That would be an interesting choice. I honestly hope that Kara never gets anywhere close to a Gundam franchise
Well,
again.
no, to just do the remake of the animation
Yeah, but even
as the
then,
remake, like where everything is completely one to one the same, no changes.
that's a good
And I feel like that's almost like what they were like. That was a resume for that or something.
yeah.
There was their application for, hey, we want to redo it because I feel like a lot of again, Shalia Bull, the Bravo, a lot of that stuff has to do with them growing up with that at that time, at the age they are at. So this holds such a special place to them that I think they
Oh,
would
yeah.
want to just do that, and then almost like an easy thing for Sunrise to be like, well, we were just gonna do it for money, but they, like, loved to do it, so that would be the best way to have it done, you know?
Well, and it's very clear that they didn't want to do they wanted to just do a UC, fan fiction in the first place,
Yeah.
it seems unfair to have forced the car guys to, do an original story when that's clearly not what they wanted to do in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Because again, when you leave the series, it's not like there's anything you're taking with it.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
It's
let's, though, say at the very end, it was a happy ending,
it was a happy ending, for
and
sure.
that doesn't happen a lot.
Doesn't happen often in Gundam. Well, was it a happy ending or was it bittersweet?
Why? What do you think was
Well, it seemed like Lala had become like a refugee in those camps.
you know what? I wasn't thinking too much about, except they were all alive.
It's a good point. Except for Amuro, where was he?
Well, yeah, that's yeah,
And
which
oh, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say real quick, it's funny to now look back and think of all of the extreme, um, predictions people had when
Oh yeah,
most of that stuff didn't even happen. Not even as simple as Amuro, you would think that would happen somewhere. Um,
nothing.
yeah,
No
that's kinda funny.
Amuro. No. Um. Ooh. So I'm trying to think here.
Yeah, how's this
Before
been going? Because man, you've been multitasking like a madman,
I
and that's
think that we're
looking good.
getting so this looks pretty SD to me.
Yeah,
Right? What do you guys think? And let me fire up the textured version and see what it looks like. It's probably going to be a mess, I'll be honest with you. Ooh, I don't know. That looks pretty tough.
that's cool looking, I think.
So do you think that that is going to be a match for this little guy?
Yeah, I think so.
Obviously, it's going to have some big shoulders, but once we 3D print this sucker, I think we're going to have a lot of fun with it. Yeah, I think this is coming together quite nicely. So with the Pharact in particular, we're basically enlarging the head, enlarging the torso, reducing the size of the biceps. We might even get rid of the biceps entirely because the SD cross silhouette frame comes with a just like a stock bicep, and then the forearm actually clips around. Similarly, the calves, or not the calves, the thighs are super big, but the calves we probably need to reduce the size of. So I'm thinking like what we might do is hop into the calf here and let's just take all of it and scale it down on the Z axis and just make it a little shorter and stubbier. Because if you look at the thighs of the Calibarn here, they're kind of they're big, but they're stocky.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go with it.
So I think if we do it to we'll just say 0.75, so 3/4 of the size that they're supposed to be. And if we bring up the frame again, I think it's gonna fit pretty nicely together. And you can see this is where the bicep would be. So we're gonna have to make some changes around the way that the forearm is shaped, but overall the placement of it is where it needs to be.
I see. That's
But
pretty
pretty
amazing.
cool, right?
Yeah. I
We've taken a standard proportioned model and turned it into an SD live before your eyes,
dude,
while talking about GQX.
I know that was pretty amazing, dude, but I feel like don't you think there would be people that there are people that collect SD that would buy every SD? Like, I feel like that is maybe and maybe Bandai just doesn't have that capacity to do that, but I feel like every SD model kit because I feel like it's popular.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. Like, it's come around on me. I'm a big fan of the
Yeah.
SD look.
I don't know if you
Eh,
saw my video today yet, and you don't have to. I get it. It's, long day work. No, but it was SD related.
yeah, I
And in
saw.
it, I oh, okay, you just see it because I make this
Did.
comment. Oh, you saw it?
Yeah,
Oh,
you guys, dude, the thumbnail got me. It's like I don't usually buy this, but
yeah. And then it's like in the video, I go, what was it? Yeah, I say that again. It's like I've never really been into this, and then I just had to put the text always has been. Because at this point, I'm like, Adam, how many times can you say you're not really into SD every time you buy SD? It's like a abusive relationship.
exactly. Oh yeah, you come home and your wallet has two black eyes from the the abuse you're suffering. No, but I mean, in all seriousness, I think that like there's a certain charm that SD models have
Yeah,
that
there is.
gets.
It it
I can
it
understand why you wouldn't like SD models for like an anime, but for video games and for model kit purposes, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, because I think it's one of those things, it's not about the lore, it's about that thing that, how humans have that natural inclination to look like babies or plushies, to like something like that, and I think the SD kinda gives off that sorta cute vibe.
Oh yeah, I love it
Um,
so much I want to crush it and then kill
yeah,
it.
but yeah, yeah.
um, and especially kits like these, like the Pharact, like the Calibarn, like these types of these mobile suits tend to lend themselves pretty nicely to SD proportions just because they have kind of exaggerated proportions to begin with.
Ah, okay.
But
Yeah.
um, I never realized that the feet were like backwards on the Pharact. That's interesting.
Hmm.
Maybe I'm looking at them wrong, but I'm pretty sure that that's kind of interesting. But it looks like I won't be able to use the actual cross silhouette feet because, like, if that's the cross silhouette foot part, then I might have to just scale up the feet of the Pharact to fit that.
Yeah. Huh.
But I would say that that is a lot of progress
Yeah,
for one evening of talking about GQucks,
I think
and
so.
we've got ourselves what looks to be like an SD Pharact. Um, in fact, I
So,
think,
estimate time of completion.
that's a good question. I think maybe this will be the August Patreon
Oh,
reward. Let's put it that way.
okay.
Um, let me try. I want to try and show off because obviously, we talked about this earlier. I think that this would be a very cool way to reference it, right? So if this is what my Pharact looks like, let's show off what uh, G Generation Eternal. This is a screenshot. That is
Ah,
what an SD Pharact would look like. It's pretty close, right? I might have to make
yeah.
the shoulders a little bigger, but
No, I feel like the shoulders are um,
shoulders are
oh,
appropriate.
yeah.
See, I probably should have taken this image and pulled it into Blender as a reference. That'll be that'll be the way to confirm the
Or get the model out of this game. Do we know how
I
to
don't
do
think
that?
you could pull the 3D models out of
No.
Eternal. I think that
Ah.
they're only rendered as sprites, but
Oh, interesting.
it's a way of, saving space in the game.
Yeah, it would make sense just from the way the game has to be displayed in the first place. It doesn't really require
Yeah, limitations. Honestly, like, one of the things that I think is admirable about mobile games is the fact that that's one of the last bastions of, video game optimization.
yeah, that's a really good point.
I feel like games designed for PCs, they just do not care. They're like,
Yeah.
"Man, it's gonna be 120 gigabytes, it's gonna need 16 gigs of RAM, and, whatever latest NVIDIA GeForce to"
Well,
like
speaking of, mobile games, there's that Call of Duty Mobile that's gonna have the Wing Gundam in it.
Yeah. Oh,
Isn't that
shout out
crazy?
to, Principality New York that broke
Yeah,
the news on that.
and I don't see myself downloading it or trying it. I've played Call of Duty Mobile before, but it's just not my like, if I'm gonna play a first person shooter, I'm gonna just play Call of Duty, I guess. Or if
Yeah.
I'm gonna play Call of Duty, I'm gonna play Call of Duty. I don't know.
Well, and that's one of the big letdowns of Call of Duty, right? Is they should have done the same thing that Fortnite does, which is that, like, the mobile players can play with the console players.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting that there's not a cross play there. That is interesting.
Mm,
Mhm.
missed opportunities there.
Yeah.
But yeah, before we sign out for the night, dude, I've seen the chat just blowing up. I saw no one in
Yeah.
there talking about
Oh, yeah.
all kinds of
The
GQX
GQX
stuff.
commentary.
But yeah, Goji says the chibi style Sofubian vinyl figures are huge right now. Yes, exactly. Yeah, chibi DBZ characters were like the thing when I was growing up, and now
Oh.
you have DB like Dragon Ball Daima, right? Which is like the chibi Dragon Ball.
I know they've had those vinyl chibi Gundams come out recently, like, they've had the Zeta and the Hyakushiki recently.
Those things are awesome. They're like
Yeah.
big.
I
Too.
know. I
Love
know.
those things. Um But, let's see, Alan Mitchell says, "That's pretty spot on." Ultronum says, "If Eternal is like the other SD games, there are a ton of sprites." Yes, true. Um, no one says you could slightly retool the GCUX narrative and cut him from it, and the show would work better genuinely. Oh, slightly retool the GCUX narrative and remove him from it. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, the GQX itself is like it's kind of irrelevant to the story. It's like you said, like Machu is just not a
Yeah, and I remember all the Haman Karn, speculation, and I was, like, convinced. It's like someone says one thing, and I should know, don't listen to people.
well, I read it on the internet, so
Yeah,
clearly.
exactly.
Dude, it really does feel like, my final thoughts on GQucks are that it is two stories that are existing in spite of each other that was way too ambitious to try and cram into 12 episodes. And I think that it was the wrong studio to try and do it.
Yeah, whatever they were trying to do.
Whatever they were trying to do, they didn't do it. And whatever they did do, I
Yeah,
don't know. Um, but yeah, in the meantime, we've got Chibi Gundams that we're working on here.
yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
And here I am training to get my own Rose of
Oh,
Sharon.
I just noticed that shirt. Wow, that's cool. How did I
Yeah.
not notice that?
Ultronymous called it out in chat, but yeah, this my little brother bought me this shirt.
Oh, that's
Trained to be the
cool.
red comet.
That's pretty neat. Oh, I didn't notice that.
But yeah, like I said, I did catch your video. So yeah, if you guys haven't watched it, go watch. Obviously, Adam's had some great reviews lately between between Gunpla collectibles and just assorted
Whatever.
Gashapon figures. You've been
Yeah,
getting a lot of Gundam goodies lately
I love
that
that
you've been
stuff.
showing off. So I dig that. And then of course we've got the Gundam Explained show tomorrow. We
That's
might
right.
dive more into some GQuX stuff there. Uh,
Yeah,
otherwise, like I'm worried that this is gonna start becoming like a G Generation Eternal channel because I feel
I
like every
know.
week I'm just like, "Hey, the latest event on G Generation Eternal. Let's
Hey, man, well, it's genuine content. It's authentic. So,
Yeah,
if it's
I
authentic,
authentically care about it. Let me tell you
yeah,
that. But yeah, thank you, Adam, for suffering through another session of Blender.
no
Hopefully,
problem.
you guys got to see some of the workflow that I have when I'm adapting like a video game model to a 3D print. There's obviously a ton more work that's going to go into this. We're going to need to split the individual limbs into like halves. Um, the most difficult part is always the head, and you're going to see why. But
Oh,
until we get to that, you
yeah,
guys have a great evening. We will see you
yeah.
tomorrow. And until then, catch you later.
See y'all.